After more than 20 hours of deliberation so far in the Daniel Penny case, the most serious charge is out. The jury could not agree on that charge. The prosecutor in the case, then Daphne Yoren, moved to dismiss that charge, a Hail Mary, to then have the jury go back and consider the second lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide. The judge agreed and then dismissed the jury until Monday. There's just one problem. The move by the assistant district attorney and by the New York judge may not entirely be legal. I'm joined now by attorney and legal analyst Jonna Spilbor. So the judge gave jury instructions at the beginning of all of this that specifically said that if they couldn't convict on the first count, they couldn't even consider the second count at all. Now he wants all of this to just sort of go away and pretend like that Penny wasn't even charged with the more serious crime. Your thoughts on this, and will the jury see this almost like a form of coercion to try to get to a guilty verdict?
I'm not sure the jury will see it that way. And I have to tell you that I'm disappointed in this jury and disgusted with the prosecution, because this was really unfair play on a number of levels. First and foremost, Tom, let's do the math here for a minute. I think an acquittal at this point is now completely off the table. And the reason for that is all we know is that at least one of these jurors wanted to convict Daniel Penny of manslaughter. That's why they were hung. It could have been one, it could have been five, it could have been more. Wanted to convict him of the top count and couldn't. That means that if they're now going to consider the negligent homicide, whoever that person or persons were are also going to want to convict him of the lesser charge. I don't see how that doesn't happen unless there's a wholesale change of heart over the weekend. That is such a violation of this defendant's due process rights. And on top of that, the prosecution really should have used its discretion in an entirely different way from start to finish, especially yesterday, when they should not have, as you said, performed a Hail Mary. They should have thrown in the towel, said uncle, and went with a mistrial.
So much of this sort of depends on that split, though, because I think if I'm sitting on the jury, I'm thinking that there's some legal funny business that's going on here on the part of the prosecution, because they didn't meet their burden of proof and they overcharged the case to begin with. Does that have an impact on the jury, real quick for me?
You know, it might, depending on what that split is, and we don't know. And the jury might say to themselves, look, the prosecution didn't meet their burden of proof on the top count. Why did they charge the top count? But juries also like to split babies. They don't like to let people walk, unfortunately. So they might want to compromise and find Daniel Penny guilty of this lesser charge. And I got to tell you something, Tom, if they do that, the city that never sleeps is going to become the city of sitting ducks. No one's ever going to want to stand up for themselves or in defense of others. And that is a crying shame. The NYPD has been castrated politically, and this is going to be terrible for the entire state of New York if he's convicted. All
right, much more to come on this, but a lot of drama yesterday spilling over now into next week. Jonna Spilbor, thank you so much.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.